following video is for entertaining purposes. This record will not be edited, so it will include all the bloopers. And last but not least, please enjoy. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe or leave comments below. Thank you. This was a lofty chamber, lined and littered with countless bottles. Broad, low tables were scattered about, which blistered with resorts, test tubes, and little Bunsen lamps with their blue flickering flames. There was only one student in the room who was bending over a distant table, absorbed in his work. At the sound of our steps, he glanced round and sprang to his feet with a cry of pleasure. "I found it! I found it!" he shouted to my companion, running toward us with a test tube in his hand. "I found a reagent which is precipitated by hemoglobin and by nothing else." Had he discovered a gold mine? Greater delight could not have shone upon his features. "Dr. Watson, Mr. Sherlock Holmes," said Stanford, introducing us. "How are you?" he said cordially, gripping my hand with a strength for which I should hardly have given him credit. "Have you been in Afghanistan, I perceive?" "How on earth did you know that?" I asked in astonishment. "Never mind," he said, chuckling to himself. "The question now is about hemoglobin. No doubt you see the significance of the discovery of mine?" "It is interesting, chemically, no doubt," I answered, "but practically—" "Why, man, it is the most practical medical legal discovery for years. Don't you see that it was infallible test for blood strains? Come over here now." He seized me by the coat sleeve in his eagerness and drew me over to the table at which he had been working. "Let us have some flesh blood," he said, digging a long bodkin into his finger and throwing off the resulting drop of blood in a chemical pipette. "Now I add this chemical quantity of blood to a liter of water. You perceive that the resulting mixture has the appearance of pure water. The proportion of blood cannot be more than 1 in a million. I have no doubt, however, that we shall be able to obtain the characteristic reaction." As he spoke, he threw into a vessel a few white crystals and then added some drops of a transparent fluid. In an instant, the contents assumed a dull mahogany color, and a brownish dust was precipitated on the bottom of the glass jar. "Ha ha!" he cried, clapping his hands and looking as delighted as a child with a new toy. "What do you think of that?" "It seems to be a very delicate test," I remarked. "Beautiful! Beautiful! The old Gr8lady test was very clumsy and uncertain. So is the microscopic examination for blood corpuscles. The latter is valueless in the stain if the stains are a few hours old. Now, this appears to act as well whether the blood is old or new. Had this test been invented, there are hundreds of men now walking the earth who would have long paid the penalty of their crimes." "Indeed," I murmured. "Criminal cases are continually hinging upon that point. A man is suspected of a crime months perhaps after it has been committed. His lining of clothes are examined and brownish stains discovered upon them. Are they blood stains, or mud stains, or rust stains, or fruit stains? Or what are they? That is a question which has puzzled many an expert. And why? Because there was no reliable test. Now we have the Sherlock Holmes test, and there will no longer be any difficulty. His eyes fairly glittered as he spoke, and he put his hand over his hat and bowed as if to some applauding crowd conjured by his imagination. "You're to be congratulated," I remarked, considerably surprised at the enthusiasm. "There was a case of one bishop at Frankfurt last year. He would certainly have been hung had this test been in existence. Then there was Mason Bradford, and the notorious Muller, and Lefebvre of Montpellier, and Sansom of New Orleans. I could name a score of cases in which it would have been decisive." "You seem to be a walking calendar of crime," said Stamford with a laugh. "You must start a paper of those lines. Call it Police News of the Past." "Very interesting reading it might be made too," remarked Sherlock Holmes, sticking a small piece of plaster over the prick on his finger. "I have to be careful," he continued, turning to me with a smile, "for I dabble with poisons a good deal." He held out his hand as he spoke, and I noticed that it was all mottled over with similar pieces of plaster and discolored with strong acids. "We came here on business," said Stamford, sitting down on a high three-legged stool and pushing another one in my direction with his foot. "My friend here wants to take diggings, as you were complaining that you could get no one to go halves with you, so I thought that I had better bring you together." Sherlock Holmes seemed delighted at the idea of sharing his room with me. "I have my eye on a suit on Baker Street, which I will set us down to the ground. You don't mind the smell of strong tobacco, I hope?" "I always smoke chips myself," I answered. "That's good enough. I generally have chemicals about and occasionally do experiments. Will that annoy you?" "By no means." "Let me see what are my other shortcomings. I get in the dumps at times, and don't open my mouth for days on end. You must not think I'm a sulky when I do that. Just let me alone, and I'll soon be right. What have you to confess now? It's just as well for two fellows to know the worst of one another before they begin to live together." I laughed at this cross-examination. "I keep a bull pup," I said, "and I object to rows because my nerves are shaken, and I get up at all sorts of ungodly hours, and I am extremely lazy. I have another set of vices when I'm well, but those are the principal ones I have at present." "Do you include violin playing in your category of rows?" he asked anxiously. "It depends on the player," I answered. "A well-played violin is a treat for gods. A badly played one—" "Oh, that's all right," he cried with a merry laugh. "I think we may consider the things as settled. That is, if the rooms are agreeable to you. Then when shall we see them? Call for me there at noon tomorrow, and we'll go together and settle everything," he answered. "All right, noon exactly," I said, shaking his hand. We left him working among his chemicals as we walked together towards my hotel. By the way, I asked suddenly, stopping and turning upon Stanford, how the deuce did he know that I had come from Afghanistan? My companion smiled an enigmatical smile. That is just his little peculiarity, he said. A good many people have wanted to know how he finds out. Oh, a mystery, is it? I cried, rubbing my hands. This is very piquant. I am much obliged for you to bring in us together. The proper study of mankind is meant, you know. You must study him then, Stanford said, as he bade me goodbye. You'll find him a knotty problem, thought. I'll wager he learns more about you than you about him. Goodbye! Goodbye, I answered, and strolled onto my hotel, considerably interested in my new acquaintance.